Okay, welcome back. This is Beacon of Hype. I'm starting here today with Virtual Murder 2. This is the sequel to Sam Rupert that we were previously playing. And this one here is Magic Death, Virtual Murder 2. This one involves the murder of Elspeth Haskard. And giving you a brief rundown of the game as it's presented. This one here has the little backstory on the back of the packaging. I can just kind of flash this real quick for you. Very, very basic CD-ROM presentation in terms of the packaging. Was one of the ones that I received as a gift from my mother years ago when we were just getting CD-ROM introduced to the mainstream. Sam Rupert came with this package, as well as Magic Death, a few educational CD-ROMs as well that had full motion capture involved. There was even like a Shakespeare CD-ROM disc that, compared to Sam Rupert and Magic Death here, obviously I guess it's safe to say that Shakespeare doesn't get as much playtime as these ones. So on the package here it says, "Can you solve this case? You are under tremendous strain, but you have all the resources of the police department at your disposal. There's Lucy Farwell, your assistant, who has filed the crime report, interviewed the suspects, and verified their alibis. You have complete access to the crime scene with the ability to view any piece of evidence in close-up detail. You also have the forensics lab on call and have access to the victim's desk, including her phone log, her calendar, and her investment records. Lucy has also found you an expert on the voodoo religion and a lexicon of voodoo symbols. You'll need it all because the press is demanding to see you and will not give up until you hold a press conference. Will you solve the case in time? Will you have the answers the press is demanding? Will you find the killer? Only time will tell. And if you do, there are still 2 other avenues you can explore just to keep the game interesting." So, there you go. This one here it's another from the same writers, same production, multimedia mystery from Creative Multimedia, Shannon Gilligan, who, again, I keep saying it, I'm going to try my best when I have the time to try to see if hopefully Shannon is still among us and I can, if I'm ever at a point where I can score an interview or any kind of chat with her just to get insight on how the games were developed, how she went about finding the cast members for all of these. It'll be really interesting stuff. I don't think I've found anything like that online in the past. So hopefully if I do score that, it'll be a first time ever experience for you guys. So let's get going on the Magic Death. I'm going to try to not talk as much in between interviews so you can get all the interviews into one video here for the first installment, because there are more suspects in this installment and in the ones that follow. Again, after Sam Rupert, I feel like that you can tell Sam Rupert was the blueprint, and they built upon this to make it more interesting, have more layers, and obviously more gameplay time. One thing you'll notice, as far as having the 3 possibilities, up here in the left-hand corner, new addition is the little icon of the detective here. If we click on that, that gives us the opportunity to select which murderer or which scenario we want to go with. So we're going to start with, obviously, Murderer 1. We'll want to remember that. I'll make sure I kind of note that in the titling of the videos subsequently, so that we have an idea of which one you want to reference. We'll make sure we'll title it Magic Death Scenario 1 Gameplay, something of that nature. So we have it right there. Currently selected murderer is 1. We go back. We'll use this and have a rundown of everything we need to know.
90% of the murders solved in the United States were solved within the first 6 hours. This is the premise for solving the magic tragic death. You have exactly 6 hours on the clock to solve this crime. Every step of your investigation takes a certain number of minutes. A clock in the upper right corner of your screen keeps track of the time you're using and the time you have left. Be sure not to waste time, or the murderer may escape your grasp. The murder must be solved in 2 stages. The first stage, which you're looking at, provides all the major facts, details, and forensic tests available to you as detective. Report of the murder can be played as many times as you'd like. It provides the basic facts of the case and is narrated by your assistant, Lucy Farewell, who has arrived at the scene of the crime before you. This is the only component of the game that does not take time off the clock. The crime scene, complete with the corpse, has been left by the crime scene team for your examination. You can click on any object on the screen for a closer look. You can also execute a number of forensic exams on any object. Possible suspects is the place where you can find out more about those closest to the victim and what they were doing last night at the estimated time of death. The interviews were conducted by Lucy and were recorded on video. The apartment provides a layout of Elspeth Asgard's apartment. Lucy and the crime scene team are going over it right now. Click on any room for a report of what's been found. Other sources are available for your examination. They include an interview with a Vodun expert, where you can find out more about the victim's field of study. There's the autopsy report explaining exact cause of death. You can look at the victim's desk to examine her diary, her calendar, and an audio tape with a fight that no one was supposed to hear. You can access the phone records from Elspeth Asgard's line to find out who she talked to on the last day of her life. A lexicon of Vodun symbols may provide useful information about the mysterious symbol drawn at the crime scene. Non-testimonial evidence is where you'll get a judge's permission to fingerprint and blood type all the major suspects. This allows you to compare results with clues you found elsewhere. In alibis, you can access Lucy Farrell's report on each suspect's alibi. Once you've narrowed down the suspects, you're allowed to interview 3 of them in more depth. But before you can do this, the press is demanding a press conference. You agree to 10 questions. If you answer 7 of them correctly, you can advance to identifying your final interview subjects. You can interview 1, 2, or 3 suspects to collect the final pieces of your case. Any one of them may provide that crucial clue that solves the murder. Once you have your man or woman, you can proceed to warrant application. There you will have to provide the evidence that supports your choice of murderer. The judge may grant you a warrant, or she may deny it. It depends on the strength of your application. Wherever you are in the game, when there are 30 minutes remaining, you will automatically default to the press conference. If you complete it successfully, you can use your remaining time to file a warrant application. Once you have a warrant, you can make your arrest. Like report of the murder, the arrest is free. You may be correct, you may be dead wrong. This is where you find out. And if you aren't right, and you still have 20 minutes left, you can try again. Even an incorrect arrest can teach you something. At any point in the game, you can access help for further explanation. Good luck. You can start any time by pressing Begin Investigation.
Okay. I'm gonna see if I can. I don't know if I can get out of this to check the volume. I guess not. Hopefully, you guys can hear this okay.
Since you have only 6 hours to find your murderer, you must use every minute wisely. Pay close attention to details. How somebody said something may be as important as what they said. No clue is too small to consider, and no clue is too small to help you solve the case. As you accumulate facts, try to eliminate suspects, then pursue those who remain. Although it takes some time, it is a good idea to interview most of the suspects up front. This will give you a complete picture of the murder itself and the motives that played a part in Elspeth Asgard's death. Remember to review your notes frequently. Make sure to take a last look before calling your press conference. Those guys can ask tough questions. Above all, keep your own counsel. Be on the lookout for a suspect who reveals something you shouldn't know. Now, good luck.
Without giving too much away, one thing that I'm glad that they did make sure to point out in that video there to look out for things that a suspect may say that gives away that they know something that they shouldn't. Anytime that something is said, even in passing, if it's something that either has not been revealed in the press or just they themselves wouldn't be privy to, that tells you that they know that because they were probably at the scene of the crime. Alright, so we're going to begin the investigation. One thing you also notice, from Sam Rupert, they did definitely, have a little bit of an upgrade involving the music selections. Almost every single menu has its own little soundtrack going, which I thought was a nice touch, give it a little bit more layer. So let's go. Report of the murder.
The victim's name is Elsbeth Hasgard, age 27, height 5'7", weighed approximately 110 pounds. She lives in an apartment at 422 Alberton on the north side. That's where her body was found. Hasgard was a doctoral candidate in the anthropology department at the university. Word is that she's one of their most brilliant students in years. Her fieldwork is the study of the voodoo religion in Haiti. From the looks of things, I wouldn't be surprised if it had something to do with the murder. The victim was found lying on the floor in her office at home, arranged like Christ on the cross. There's even blood in each palm, although we're not sure it's hers. Her face and body have been smeared with some kind of clay or mud. There's an intricate symbol drawn in white powder to the left of the body on the floor. Above the victim's head is a small shrine filled with what appear to be fetish objects. The victim is naked, except for a white cotton dress that's been draped over her. The dress is covered in more blood, but a preliminary exam of the body fails to indicate a wound trauma of any sort. The OMI suspects poison, but we won't know for sure until the autopsy. Time of death is estimated for some time around 10 p.m. last night. An undergraduate named Paul Budnick found the body at around 10 this morning. He's in her undergraduate seminar and says that they had an appointment to discuss his midterm exam. She didn't answer the doorbell. He claims he accidentally leaned on the door and it swung open by itself. It wasn't locked, so we went in and found the body. He called it in from the phone in her kitchen. Right now, we're trying to locate next of kin. Hasgard isn't from Chicago, but the secretary of the department says the victim's brother lives in town. We have contacted the head of the Department of Anthropology, Richard Neiman, who said something very strange. He burst into tears saying, and I quote, "Something like this was bound to happen to Elsbeth sooner or later." Another interesting detail, the victim's apartment was vandalized just 2 days ago. Her papers and notes were disturbed, and an audio tape from her latest trip to Haiti was stolen. She was very upset about it, according to Harry Delgado, the detective assigned to the case. Delgado said at first she got hysterical, and then she became very frightened. As usual, Lieutenant, we've left the body for you to take a look.
Gotta love the dramatic acting with Paul Budnick and the hair. Just anytime that something really shocking is going on or emotional, the hair gets moved back every so often. Alright, so for this video we're going to jump to the 12 likely suspects. No, in Sam Rupert's case there were only 8. So they've actually even beefed up the number of suspects in the cases. Alright, so just a brief rundown. We've got Alyssa Palmer, who was also, I guess, an understudy or a student of the university and was an educational rival of Elsbeth. Lieutenant Harry Delgado, who I never understood exactly why he was here, aside from he's the lieutenant assigned to her break-in case, so he would have some knowledge of her whereabouts or her comings and goings, possibly. Jamaica Baldwin, who is another contact of the deceased. Jody Howland, who is a fellow tenant of the building that Elspeth lived in and owned. You'll find that out. Carl Schulman, who is another apparently close friend and possible suspect here. Agnes Murray, who is another tenant of the building that Elspeth owned. It should be also noted Alyssa Palmer lives in the same building. So as far as the apartments that are in this building, the ones that had the closest proximity to Elspeth are Alyssa, Jody, and Agnes. Damon Haskard. Damon is obviously Elspeth Haskard's brother, apparently the only living relative. Mark LeMay is Elspeth's apparently established boyfriend, but obviously, we'll find out in the interviews to come that she wasn't exactly faithful to Mark, so there's his motive. Miriam Tate, who apparently is also a employee of the university and a contact / friend of Elspeth's in other areas. Paul Budnick, as we saw in the previous rundown of the investigation, discovered the body and is another quote-unquote friend of Elspeth's. Richard Neiman, who was referred to in the investigation rundown. In terms of other very dramatic acting, you'll be treated to that momentarily with Richard. And Edward Talaman. You'll notice Edward has returned and is part of this case. He was one of the 8 likely suspects for Sam Rupert's case, and he's in some weird way found his way into another murder investigation. So let's start from the top left, and we'll go basically in rows and get all these hammered out now. Let's start with Alyssa.
Alyssa Palmer. I'm a doctoral student in the anthropology department, and I know I'm a suspect in the murder of Elspeth Haskard, so let's not beat around the bush. I didn't kill her, but I'm happy to tell you anything I can that you might want to know.
Were you friends with the victim?
No, Elspeth didn't have any friends. She was too competitive. We were just civil to each other. I paid my rent on time, asked after her work when she asked after mine. That was it.
Paid your rent?
Sure. I live here at 422 Albritton, and Elspeth owned the building. Or didn't you know that? She liked to keep it a secret. Well, I'd like to know, where did she get the money to buy it? When she started her doctorate 4 years ago, she was as poor as the rest of us.
Do you have any ideas?
Well, rumor has it that she was blackmailing Carl over the Naomi incident.
Carl and Naomi who?
Carl Schulman, as in the Schulman wing at the Art Institute. Carl was also in the Anthro program. He went traveling to West Africa to do some research, and he took Elspeth and another student named Naomi Freeman with him. This was, 3 years ago. Anyway, Naomi and Carl were a big item back then. She was this absolutely ravishing black woman, and Carl was madly in love with her. And when they left, they weren't really getting along very well. And somehow, she died in the field while they were out there. It was never completely explained what happened. Some people say that Carl got in a fight with Naomi, killed her, and that Elspeth found out about it.
And she's blackmailed him about it ever since.
That's the rumor.
When was the last time you saw Elspeth Haskard alive?
Yesterday afternoon at around 4:30. I passed her in the hall. She was headed towards her apartment.
Did you see or hear anything last night?
No, just Agnes Murray, who lives up above me, listening to her opera. I think she's going a little deaf. She really cranks the volume. Surprising I shouldn't hear anything, don't you think, considering the gruesome nature of the murder?
So you were home all night?
Yes.
Is there anyone else who might have a reason to kill the victim?
Besides Carl? Her nutty brother, maybe. Just last week I heard them arguing over money. Sounded really vicious.
Do you know much about voodoo, Miss Palmer?
Only as much as is necessary. My particular area of study is in the relationships between village headman and the central government of Haiti, anthropological political science. Voodoo is much more intertwined with religious beliefs and magic. That was Elspeth's interest. I put her 2 feet on the ground.
Thank you for your help.
You could call it that.
Very, very snooty. And now if you'll notice, the ear is lit up.
How does Alyssa Palmer know that the murder scene is gruesome? And why isn't a single woman living alone more frightened by a murder in her own building?
So see, now each one of I don't know if all the interviews have the ear pop up, but it's good to see now, even with the interviews, the initial interviews, not just the in-depth ones, that becomes an option to get little side notes, tips as to what we should be listening for. So let's go on to Lieutenant Harry Delgado.
Lieutenant Harry Delgado. I've been working on a theft that took place 2 days ago at the victim's apartment.
Can you describe the case?
First seemed fairly standard. Precinct got a call 10:39 Sunday night. I responded and went to the victim's apartment, 422 Elbridge. Nice building, 4 apartments total, 2 to a floor. Victim lived upstairs. Somebody jimmied a window in the kitchen. None of the neighbors heard or saw anything. Happened between 6 and 10:30 while the victim was at the library.
What was stolen?
That's the odd thing. Her computer and stereo were there, her jewelry, but she couldn't have cared less. Her desk had been ransacked. Papers were all over the place. When I got there, she was frantically searching for the piles looking for something. I'd describe her as hysterical. Said she was missing a very important tape. Said she was an anthropologist and studied voodoo. And no joke, I thought to myself. By then, I'd already seen the shrunken head in the bookshelf. Asked if she might know somebody who would want the tape and what it was for. She said, and I quote, "It's my proof." And as she spoke, it was as though something suddenly dawned on her. She turned white as a sheet and asked me to leave.
Any promising leads?
Nothing. The place was clean of prints, no footprints outside. I was about ready to call and ask if she'd found the tape, when Frankie tells me my meeting just turned into an homicide.
Thanks, Harry. We'll call if there's anything else.
Yeah, good luck to the 2 of you.
Okay. So see how with his interview, no pop up with the ear. So it is kind of selective based on what they say at the time. Jamaica.
Your murder application. My name is Jamaica Baldwin. I own my own shop here where I sell West Indian things, arts, crafts, food stuff that people from back home miss. I've known Miss Elspeth for several years now. She'd come in for a hot sauce, Christophanies, and things of the like. Occasionally I did a reading.
A reading?
Yes, a mystical reading. Sometimes for advice, sometimes for interpretation of events.
When was the last time you did one of these readings for Miss Haskell?
A week ago Monday.
What did she want to know?
She said she had a big decision, but she did not say what. She was leaning in a certain direction and wanted to know if it was the right one.
Was it?
I did not see, but what I did see I told her.
Can you elaborate?
I saw someone trying to harm Miss Elspeth, waiting to harm her. They were waiting and watching, and I told her to be careful and to cross no one.
Did you see anything else?
I saw a woman. The person who was trying to harm her was a woman, but I did not see a face.
Do you practice voodoo, Miss Baldwin?
No, I'm from Jamaica. What use would I have with voodoo? That's for the nuts in Haiti.
Can you tell me your movements yesterday evening?
I closed my shop at 7, and I went upstairs to my apartment and watched television with my sister and her boyfriend. And then I read my Bible and went to sleep at midnight.
Thank you for your help. That's all for now.
There's more to this crime that's on the surface, Detective. You must look deep.
Okay, so we learned that she actually has a shop and does readings and things of that nature. And she's had a vision of a woman watching and waiting to harm Elspeth. And let's see what the side note is.
I checked around, and Jamaica Baldwin has a legitimate reputation as a psychic.
Okay. Now on to another tenant of the apartment building, Jody Howland.
Jody Howland. I'm an actress. I also teach drama at the university. I live in the apartment directly underneath Elsbeth Haskard's at 422 Albritton Avenue.
Did you know Miss Haskard?
Some. Mostly through what she did to Agnes.
You mean the Agnes Marie who lives upstairs?
Yes, Agnes is rent stabilized. She probably only pays a few hundred a month for her place. The market value is more like 800. As soon as Elsbeth bought the building, she tried to get Agnes evicted through some weird loophole in the rent board regulations.
You knew that Elsbeth Haskard owned the building?
Not at first. I found out when Agnes's problems began. She told me. It was a lousy thing for Elsbeth to do. Agnes must be nearly 80. Having this apartment in a good neighborhood means a lot to her. Although now, after that burglary Sunday and this, I guess it's not that great anymore.
When was the last time you saw the victim?
I haven't seen Elsbeth in at least a week. We never visited. But I did hear something.
Hear something?
Last night. I heard her talking with some man. They weren't fighting, but their tones were urgent, if you know what I mean. And I distinctly heard a man crying. It also sounded like some glass shattered.
What time was this?
Sometime between 8:15 when I came home to change and 9 when I left for the movie. I spent the night at my boyfriend's house.
Do you have any knowledge of voodoo, Miss Howland?
No.
Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch if there's anything else.
Just a reminder from the chief. You've got 5 big ones left.
Okay, so with Jody Howland, again, there's no side note. Nothing that she said seems really out of the ordinary, and aside from just learning about Elspeth's history and or maybe ongoing dealings with Agnes, trying to get her evicted because she is rent stabilized and maybe wasn't coughing up as much money as Elspeth would have liked to make the ownership of the building profitable. So let's go on to Carl Schulman.
Your name and occupation?
Carl Schulman. I'm a doctoral student of anthropology in Elspeth's class. We were friends.
Were you close?
We had our moments. Let's just say we knew the unvarnished truth of one another.
How long had you known each other?
About 3 years. We first met on field study in West Africa.
When was the last time you saw Elsbeth Haskard alive?
Yesterday afternoon at a meeting for thesis students. But we didn't really speak. The last time I saw Elspeth was on the 23rd. We had dinner. We did that once a month.
Did you notice anything odd or unusual about Miss Haskard's behavior?
Not particularly. A bit stressed, perhaps, but nothing to get me worried.
Do you know anyone who might want Elsbeth Haskard dead?
Certainly. There are loads of people. Mark, before anyone, though.
Mark LeMay, her boyfriend.
That's right. Mark's the super possessive type. Elspeth was sleeping around. It drove him crazy. Dick Neiman, I understand. But that younger fellow barely dragged the license.
Elspeth was having an affair with Richard Neiman, the head of anthropology?
And her thesis advisor, I might add. He's been madly in love with her since she first appeared on campus about 4 years ago.
And you say she was seeing someone else besides?
All I know is that his name is Paul. He's a student in her senior seminar. He's handsome, but dumb as a post. She must have been in that one just for the sex.
Do you know how long these affairs have been going on?
Since the fall, after her return from Haiti. Dick Neiman a bit before, perhaps. He's on the selection committee for the Nobel Fellowship, and I believe Elspeth was hoping to advance herself through non-academic means. She needn't have, though. Elspeth was really a great anthropologist.
Can you describe your movements last night?
Certainly. I was at the library until 9:30. Just before I left, I checked out a book. I stopped at the filling station on Fullerton Avenue on my way home, and when I arrived home, I watched the news. I went to bed afterwards. It was about 11 o'clock. It wasn't a very eventful evening.
Mr. Shulman, do you have any knowledge of voodoo?
Certainly not. Personally, the stuff bores me to tears.
Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch if we have more questions.
I'm sure you will.
Okay, so that interview told us quite a bit about Elspeth's personal life. Found out via Carl that yes, Mark LeMay was Elspeth's boyfriend. However, she was cheating on him with both Richard Neiman and Paul Budnick. So, very busy lady. Let's see what the side note was to that interview.
A couple of suspects mentioned the rumor that Elsbeth was blackmailing Carl Schulman, but he doesn't seem like the kind of person who could abide it.
Okay. Let's on to little old Agnes Murray.
Your name and occupation.
My name is Agnes Murray. I'm retired from the phone company. I live in the apartment opposite Elspeth Hesgard.
Miss Murray, did you know the deceased well?
No, but she seemed nice enough. She's a very brilliant anthropologist, you know, writing her doctoral thesis on voodoo. She just got some big prize from the university. I read about it in the paper.
When was the last time you saw Miss Haskell?
We saw each other in the hallway Sunday morning.
Did you know about the burglary on Sunday night?
Yes. Now, I didn't hear a thing. That nice man, detective, what is his name? He said that the rear window had been jimmied open. That couldn't happen to me. I have steel bars put on. Glad, too.
Can you tell me your whereabouts last night?
Surely. I was here listening to opera all night. I was by myself, so I don't have one of those things you're always looking for. What is it called? Oh, an alibi? I don't have one of those. I was by myself.
Did you hear or notice anything at all?
Yes. I heard 4 different people come upstairs and ring the doorbell.
Do you remember when?
Not exactly. The first one must have been about 5:30 or so. I heard Miss Haskard letting herself in shortly beforehand with the key. Then they came evenly spaced after that. I thought they might be students coming to me, you know? The last one probably came around 9:15 or so. Then I went to sleep. I sleep very soundly.
Miss Marie, do you have any knowledge of voodoo?
Voodoo? Myself? None whatsoever.
Thank you. I'll be in touch if we have further questions.
Please. I want to help in any way. I want you to find this terrible man.
We haven't ruled out women, ma'am.
What? I suppose not.
That one, even before I hit the ear icon. Interesting that we find out from Jody Howland that Elspeth was essentially being nasty, kind of cold to Agnes, trying to get her evicted, and none of that came up during the interview. If anything, Agnes seemed to kind of sing her praises more than, refer to things that maybe were not very pleasant. So let's find out what the additional note is.
We know Damon Haskard visited his sister late in the day on the night of her murder. Edward Talaman openly admits he visited. This accounts for 2 of the 4 people Agnes Murray heard. The third person to visit was the man Edward Talaman reports seeing as he left. And the 4th would be Elsbeth's murderer.
And Alright, so that actually refers to, I guess, information we're going to find out from Edward Talaman and Damon in their interview. So let's go on to Damon Haskard, Elspeth's brother.
Your name and occupation.
My name is Damon Haskard. I'm Elspeth's brother. And at the moment, I'm unemployed.
Did you get along with your sister?
Sure, we got along well. Sometimes we disagreed about stuff. You know what it's like with brother and sister. I just can't believe someone would do this to her. It's horrible.
Mr. Haskard, when was the last time you saw your sister alive?
I saw her yesterday afternoon. We had tea together at her apartment.
Can you describe your movements from the time you left your sister's last night?
I left Elspeth's apartment a little after 6. I went to the bagel bakery on Winslow and Kenyon to get some dinner. I got back home near 6:30. Ate 2 bagels, watched the news. I read Gerald's Game, the new Stephen King novel, until I fell asleep at 10:30. I always go to sleep early. My roommate was home, he'll tell you.
Do you have any idea who might want to kill her?
She did say she hadn't been getting along with Mark LeMay, her boyfriend. She said he'd been bugging her lately.
Bugging her?
She didn't elaborate. My sister was a very private person. She didn't go into personal details, even with me. But I think she was about to break up with him.
Do you have any knowledge of voodoo, Mr. Haskard?
Just bits and pieces of what Elspeth told me over the years. It's polytheistic, a serious religion. The roots of voodoo can be traced to the religious and social practices of West Africa. That's where most Haitian slaves came from.
Thank you for your help. If you think of anything else, please let us know.
Of course I will.
Let's get the side note on Elspeth's brothers here. Let's see if there's anything of note.
Despite what he said to the contrary, there were several books on Haiti and the voodoo religion in his room.
Alright. So, the fact that he's saying he knows very little about it, but aside from what Elspeth told him, but he has his own collection of literary works on the subject, kind of contradicts himself there. Alright, on to the boyfriend, maybe jilted boyfriend of the deceased, Mark LeMay.
Your name and relationship to the deceased.
Mark LeMay. I'm a doctoral candidate in anthropology at the university. Elspeth Haskard and I have been dating for the past 2 years.
Have you and Elspeth Haskard been getting along recently?
No. To be perfectly honest, we hadn't.
Was there a particular reason?
I suspected that she was interested in someone else. I didn't know who, but she had been hanging back a bit emotionally. The thing is, she would either confirm or deny it. She just liked to keep hanging. And I'd had enough.
When was the last time you saw Miss Haskard?
Last Saturday morning, I stopped by on my way to the airport to go to my grandmother's 90th birthday down in New York. I was originally planning to stay down there until the end of the week. I came back when I heard the news.
So you were in New York on the night of murder?
Yes, I was staying at the Paramount Plaza Hotel.
Several people have mentioned that Elspeth Haskard didn't seem herself after her most recent trip to Haiti. Did you notice any unusual behavior or change?
She did seem tense. Elspeth said that she had made some important finding, and she wasn't sure if she should announce it. Actually, I never thought about it too much. She liked being mysterious, Elspeth. It helped enhance the legend.
Do you have much knowledge of voodoo, Mr. LeMay?
I've read some. I don't have any contact in the field.
Is there anyone you can think of who might want Elspeth Haskard dead?
I certainly question Alyssa Baldwin. If Elspeth had arrived at the doctoral program, Alyssa was it. They both did their field work
out for the Noble Fellowship this year. Elspeth won it. Enough bucks for 2, maybe 3 years of pure field work. It's one of the richest prizes in anthro anywhere. People choose to come to this university because of it. With Elspeth gone, Alyssa will see.
Thank you for your help, Mr. LeMay. We'll be back in touch when we have more questions.
You're welcome.
Detective, there are 4 hours left. Have you looked at the apartment yet?
Nope. And I highly doubt we'll have time for that this time. But, okay, here we are. So, Mark didn't really give us too much information about anybody else on the suspect list, aside from Melissa. And the fact that he admits that they weren't getting along towards the end. So let's see what the side note is.
There's something odd about this interview. According to the victim's diary, which you can see in other sources, Mark LeMay proposed marriage last week, but he doesn't seem upset enough to me.
Very interesting. For anyone that's ever seen the 80s movie One Crazy Summer, you'll probably know what I'm talking about, where I don't know who the actor is that plays Mark, but he gives off Teddy vibes to me, a rich jock kid type of thing, or like country club, all the above, So let's on to Miriam Tate.
My name is Miriam Tate. I'm the secretary here at the anthropology department.
Did you know Elspeth Hasgard well?
No, I didn't know Elspeth as well as some of the students, but I certainly admired her work. You see, I'm from Haiti.
When you say you admired her work, you're referring to her study of voodoo?
It wasn't just voodoo, Detective Farewell. It was Elspeth Hasgard's understanding of the whole fabric of Haitian life. You see, voodoo is a dance, but that dance is probably the ultimate expression of the belief system that permeates the social and governance structures of our country, and so few people outside understand this.
When was the last time you saw the deceased?
I saw Elspeth yesterday at midday. She stopped by the office to pick up her mail and messages. She stopped by most days. We chatted briefly. She always took the time to inquire after my family. There was nothing unusual or out of the ordinary.
Do you know any person who might want Elspeth Hasgard dead?
No, I don't know of any specific person, but I think there's something I ought to tell you. Elspeth received a series of threatening postcards earlier this year here at the department. They said things like, "Stop seeking," "Watch out," words cut out from magazines, even the address. They stopped coming 2 months ago. Elspeth didn't say anything about them, and I didn't want to mention them.
Do you recall the postmark, Miss Tate?
Yes. 2 were from Haiti, and 3 were postmarked here in Chicago.
Can you tell me your movements last night?
Yes, I worked late until 7:30. I stopped by the Food Fix on East Lake to pick up some groceries. Then I went to Lakeview Terrace Apartments where I live. I played jigsaw puzzle until 10. I said my prayers, and I went to bed.
Thank you for your help. Please let me know if you think of anything else, Miss Tate.
Yes, Detective. I surely will.
Okay, so Miriam lets us know that Elspeth had received some threatening postcards, both from Haiti and local. So one would think if it's not the killer that sent those, potentially she could have just had obviously multiple people that sought to do damage or to silence her in some way. Let's see what the side note is for Miriam.
to Miriam Tate, 2 of the postcards were postmarked in Haiti. When was the last time Alyssa Palmer was in Haiti?
Exactly. I mean, we know from interviews already that both Elspeth and Alyssa had done their field work in Haiti. So one would think, all right, if she's going to, try to threaten Elspeth in some way, maybe she did it while she was over there and had give off the impression that maybe it was coming from a more powerful source emanating from that country. So, all right, on to apparently one of the 2 that we know of, lovers of Elspeth, Paul Budnick.
Paul Budnick. I was a student in Elspeth's undergraduate seminar.
You found the victim's body?
Yeah. I came by this morning to meet about a midterm exam. I knocked on the door, but no one answered. I must have leaned on it or something, because the door swung wide open. I walked in, and there she was.
It's there, Flip.
I know we were sleeping together. I know it looks like I did it, but I didn't. I swear to God.
You were having an affair with Miss Hasgard.
Yeah. But we were being careful about things. She had a boyfriend. She said that they'd been on the rocks for a while.
Did Elspeth Hasgard ever talk to you about any other problems?
Yeah. She joined a secret society in Haiti. She called it a Bizongo. Once in, you're a member for life. Well, at her last visit, she was witness to a zombification. She said it was the ultimate punishment in Haitian society. She had recorded it on a tape recorder, but she was torn. She wasn't sure if she should publicize it or not. When I asked her why, she laughed and she said she didn't want to end up a zombie. But I got the impression she wasn't joking.
When was the last time you saw Elspeth Hasgard alive?
We spent the night together on Sunday. She called me last night, but I had a paper.
What time did she call?
She called about 9:15.
Did she say anything about the burglary Sunday night at her apartment?
No. Burglary, she didn't say a thing.
Can you describe your movements last night?
Yeah, like I said, I was in writing a paper. I live in an apartment on Pinecrest Ave with 3 other people. I was up until 1 or so writing. One of my roommates was woken up by the printers, so there's someone to verify it.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Budnick. This has been very helpful.
Do I need a lawyer or something?
Not yet.
Alright, let's see. So interestingly enough, Paul did not know about the burglary attempt, or the burglary that actually took place. So he was, in some ways, he was privy to certain aspects of Elspeth's life, but it seemed like she was also still shutting people out in other ways. So let's find out the additional side note.
Why didn't she say anything about the burglary to Paul Budnick? You'd think something like that you'd want to talk about. Unless there was a reason she wanted to keep it to herself. Lieutenant Delgado does say she acted very odd.
And I mean, he also, at least, he didn't, well, it's interesting, he didn't know about the burglary, but she did confide in him that she had witnessed a zombification ceremony in Haiti and had joined a secret society there. So, on the scale of important, little tidbits of your life, One would think a burglary, it's probably not as crucial as being witness to a zombification, but hey, that's just me. So on to what may be the most enjoyable interview of all 12. Welcome, Richard Neiman.
Your name and occupation.
Professor Richard Neiman. I'm head of the anthropology department here at the university.
So you knew Elsbeth Hasgard?
Yes. Yes, it was hard. It was hard. She was a difficult person not to notice.
What do you mean?
Well, for starters, she was incredibly brilliant. Her field work in Haiti was groundbreaking. But it wasn't just her mind. Elspeth had this magnetic effect on people. Me included. But she was an inspiration to all sorts of people. Besides all that, she was...
Were you in love with her?
No. I'm married.
Professor, when I first notified you about the death, you said something like this was bound to happen to Elsbeth sooner or later. What did you mean by that?
Voodoo was a very dangerous area of study. It's based on an intricate structure of secret societies that are practically impossible to penetrate. And from what I know about Elspeth's intellectual curiosity, I'm sure she pushed the limits. And there was her last trip.
Her last trip?
Yes. She was on the track of something special. She said so just before she left. She wouldn't say what. A rumor went around the department that she'd infiltrated a sorcerer's sect. It was all very strange because I'm not even certain she traveled to Haiti legally with the current political climate. Anyway, when she returned home, she seemed changed, distracted, somewhat even tormented. But she'd always had a secretive, mysterious quality that was pronounced. I asked her if there was something wrong. She said she'd made some extraordinary discoveries, but she was waiting to verify them before she presented them. Remember when she said that? I had a feeling of terrible danger. I made her promise that she'd come to me if she ever got into any trouble. She promised me that she would.
When was the last time you saw the victim alive?
Yesterday afternoon. We had a department meeting of doctoral students writing their theses.
Can you tell me, Professor, your movements last night?
Yes, I was at home with my two children from 6 o'clock on. My wife had a singing lesson. After I put the children to bed at 8:30, I corrected papers till my wife returned home at 11. And then we went to bed.
How extensive is your knowledge of voodoo practice and ceremony?
I'm afraid it's limited. My own area is Plains Indians. No, I really only know what Elspeth wrote about. Secret societies, the zombie practice, ritual, and voodoo dances.
Thank you, Professor Neiman. We'll call if we have any further questions. We'll keep you informed of our progress.
Please. Thank you.
Detective, you're halfway there. 3 hours down, 3 hours to go.
Okay, so lovely dramatic acting effects with leaning into the crying and the up and down of the glasses and just good performance. Let's get the side note for Richard.
Professor Neiman lives only 2 blocks from the victim's apartment. He could reach the victim's house in a matter of minutes on foot. We can't discount him as a suspect.
Interesting note. So he is 2 blocks away, not just, maybe not just in terms of being a suspect, but that clearly would have maybe given him the ability to come and go for other reasons. All right, last but not least, we have our returning suspect from the Sam Rupert case. Edward Talman. Off we go.
My name is Edward Talman. I am a movie producer.
Mr. Talman, there's a note in Miss Elspeth Hansford's diary that you were scheduled to meet yesterday evening with her, did you?
Yes, that's right. We were supposed to meet here at my hotel, but she called and asked if I could come to her apartment instead, which I did around 7.
What were you meeting about?
Elspeth Hansford has been recommended as someone who could be a consultant on my new film Zombie Train. Zombies are really big. Now, we wanted it to be authentic, not like that crap they made back in the 50s. I spoke to Elspeth about helping us.
Did she agree?
She said she'd think about it. Why? Why are you asking me all these questions?
Miss Hansford is dead.
Dead? Are you sure?
We're positive.
But I just saw her last night.
I know, and what we're trying to ascertain, Mr. Talman, is that someone saw her after you left. Can you describe your movements last night quite exactly?
Well, of course. I left Miss Haskard's apartment about 7:45. I had a car waiting outside. The driver took me on a tour of the waterfront, and then they returned me to the Ritz. I had dinner at the jockey club downstairs. Then I went back to my room and called my housekeeper Anna and my assistant Kate back in California. I went to bed, say about 10:30, 10:45.
Mr. Talman, did you notice anything odd when you were with Mrs. Hansford? Did anyone call? Was she relaxed?
She seemed fine, but she did get 2 phone calls while we spoke. I noticed that she was quite pleasant to the first one and very cold to the other. Probably suitors. Miss Haskard was... Well, let me put it this way. I haven't felt so much raw sex in the room since I met Madonna. Oh, I did see somebody enter the building as I was leaving. A man, late 40s, wearing a trench coat. I could probably identify him if I had to.
Yes, we appreciate that. Thank you for your time, Mr. Talman. We'll be in touch shortly.
Dead, huh? I wonder if I could work this into the plot of the movie.
Alright, so no side notes for Edward. Just pretty straightforward. He was hoping to have Elspeth as a consultant on his next film, and he was there at her apartment to discuss that with her. So here we are almost an hour in, and we've gotten the investigation rundown, and we've interviewed all 12 suspects. So I'm going to cut it off here. We're going to, in the next installment, we'll have Lucy Farwell, our assistant, run down all of the alibis that were provided, and then we will maybe start looking a little bit at the crime scene. If not the crime scene, we'll look at the other sources like her phone log, as well as her desk, seeing what was rummaged through. And we were told that there is a tape recording that we were not supposed to find and hear. So maybe we'll explore that, okay? In the meantime, this is Beacon of Hype, thanking you guys for tuning in again, and please keep up with it. Keep up with the likes, the subscribes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.